Today, I'm going to talk to you about the place of prophecy in God's master plan. What is the good of prophecy? Sometimes when I have given lectures and I would get all through, somebody would say, well, what good is it? And so I want to tell you the value of prophecy right now. Prophecy is like a light. That's what it says in 2 Peter 1:21, 19 through 21. It says there that prophecy is a light to our path. And so as we look again at what prophecy can do for you, what will it do for you? Well, prophecy in the past has been a light that has called men out of apostasy in every age. Let us think about the reformers for a moment. It was when Martin Luther took the prophecies of Daniel 7, which pointed to the little horn. It was then that all of Europe was alerted, and Martin Luther, using the prophecies of Daniel 7, pointed to the one who would think to change times and laws, the one who would persecute God's people for 1,260 years. He pointed to that little horn, and then he pointed to the papacy, and he said, this is the Antichrist. And this brought all of Northern Europe and many, many countries, the people separated from Rome. They left Rome, and the Protestant organization was begun. So it's a powerful influence. Prophecy is a powerful tool in the hands of God's people. It was also the Adventist pioneers that believed that it would enlighten the multitude of God's people still entangled in the subtleties of modern apostasy. Now today, through the churches and even through our own church, there are many winds of doctrine that are blowing, many forms of heresy, that's unbalanced views, and apostasy, outright apostasy. And it is prophecy that is going to deliver God's people and firm their position. It will give them a foundation to stand on. And the pioneers believed that the most marked guidance of prophecy would be experienced just before the world's final crisis. That statement that I have read to you previously, where Ellen White said that at the end, in the last generation, there would be those who with fasting and prayer would study until every link of the chain of truth would be fitted together and make one great panorama of the events that are to occur. I want to state right here that prophecy, I have never found any prophecy in the scripture that tells you the day and hour of the coming of Jesus. I want to make that plain right here and now. We are not going to find any date for the outpouring of the latter rain, for the close of probation, nor for the coming of Jesus. There will be no day and hour. There will be no time setting. There will be no date setting given here in this series. Well, then what does prophecy do for the last generation? In the Review and Herald, September 25, written in 1883, Ellen White said this. She said, the prophetic periods of Daniel, extending to the very eve of the great consummation, throw a flood of light on events then to transpire. You see, the prophetic periods of Daniel extending to the very eve of the great consummation, we need to look at that, what that says. What is the great consummation? What is the great consummation? The second coming of Jesus. Now, what is Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve? That brings us right down before the event. Just before Christmas, just before New Year's Day. All right, so it says the prophetic periods of Daniel, which extend to the very eve of the great consummation, the second coming of Jesus, will do what? Will they give us the day and hour? No, that's not what she says. She says they will throw a flood of light on events then to transpire. So when we understand this helps us to know that these events that we are going to consider today in this prophetic seminar will be events which will throw a flood of light on when they happen, what causes the event to occur, and what that event will do and what its result will be to cause other events to happen. And it will help us to line these events up in a sequence that is understandable. That's what we are going to be doing today. All right, now it says, there's another characteristic of prophecy that we need to understand, and it is this, that as fast and as far as history has fulfilled the succeeding segments of the master outline of prophecy, men have been able to recognize with certainty the fulfillment of them. In other words, back in the early days, men did not know much about prophecy. They would see an event occur and they would understand that that was a fulfillment, but they could not see much ahead of themselves. We say that those men were prisoners of history. When I do this way, it means quotation marks. In other words, it's a quote. It's a statement that is often used regarding prophetic fulfillment. In other words, as we come down through the ages, we should realize that prophecy is simply history written before it happens. Now, if it's history that is written before it happens, as history occurs day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, decade by decade, century by century, as history is happening, those prophecies which were written before it happened, those prophecies will be fulfilled as history happens. And so we should expect that as we go farther and farther into time and see the current events fulfilling the prophecies, we will be able to unfold the prophecies right down to our own day and see into the future. Now, we won't be able to see far into the future, and only as these prophecies are fulfilled by history can we say that now we know the meaning of the prophecy. Otherwise, it's tentative. But if we study carefully and well, we can understand the prophecies right to our very own day. Now, here is another bit of statement that I want to conclude with. Prophecy gives light in the darkness of time's last hour. It's a rainbow of promise painted by the fingers of God. And it gives assurance of coming deliverance. Now, this is what this seminar is all about. The final crisis and the final deliverance of God's people. And it says it will give assurance of final deliverance from the final cataclysm of the ages now bearing down upon the world. There are terrible things happening all over our world. Our world is changing very quickly. And if you have not had tapes, videotapes, one of them is called America in Peril. Be sure you get it and see what is happening in the USA. Our government is completely changing. The patriotism and the sovereignty of nations is fading away, and we are getting